Hi, 8th grade. This is lesson 3 of module 13. And again, they don't have a Spark Your Learning or Build Understanding, so we're going to start right with a Step It Out. So this lesson, find volume of spheres, and the I can statement says, I can find the volume of a sphere and the dimensions of a sphere given its volume. So pause right here and try to do number 1 on your own, and then we'll come back and look at it together. All right, so let's look at number 1. It says a sphere is a three-dimensional figure with all points the same distance from the center. The radius of a sphere is the distance from the center to any point on the sphere. So they show you this, but the radius is also from the center to here, the center to here, and so on. So any point from the center to the edge, or any line or segment from the center to the edge, is the radius. It says you can use the following reasoning to develop a formula for the volume of a sphere. A, start with a sphere of a radius r. So here's this one. How is the height of the sphere related to the radius? Well, the radius is just half the distance across, and so that would be all the way across would be 2r. And you could think of the height, because you learned here that a radius is to any point. So if you have the height this way, that would also be 2r. So it would be 2 times r. Consider a cylinder with the same radius and same height as the sphere. So they're looking now at this cylinder. It has the same radius and the same height as this sphere. Imagine filling the sphere, not a spear, sphere with sand and pouring the sand into the cylinder. The sand will fill 2/3 of the cylinder. So what they're saying is if you fill this sphere with sand and then you take that sand and pour it into this cylinder, it'll fill up. So let's see, here's about 1/3 and approximately 2/3. It'll fill up 2/3 of that cylinder. So they say the volume of the sphere equals 2/3 the volume of the cylinder. And remember, the volume of the cylinder equals pi times the radius squared times the height. So let's look at this. So we can put the 2/3 in here. So that's the same as we have here. And then they're saying 2/3 pi times the radius squared times 2r. So where does that come from? That is a really good question. So I want to show you because it's pretty important. So they're saying the height is the same. The height equals 2 times the radius, right? So that's why they're just substituting 2r for the height. And so if we combine all this together, 2/3 times pi times the radius squared times 2r, you can think of it, I'm going to rewrite it like this. We're going to put times 2r times pi times the radius squared. So if I were to, I can multiply those, that would give me 4/3. And I have one r here and an r squared here, and that gives me r cubed, and then I still have my pi. So that's how they get this from this. So let's look at the next problem. So let's look at number 2. It says you can use this formula to find the volume of a sphere when you are given or can calculate its radius. So pause the video here, work on A and B on your own, and then we'll come back and work on those together. So let's look at A. Approximate the volume of the sphere. They want you to use 22/7 for pi and leave your answer as an improper fraction. So let's get started on this one. To find the volume, use the volume formula with r equals 7. So the volume equals 4/3 pi times the radius cubed. So 4/3 times 22/7 times 7 cubed. And 7 cubed equals 343. So if you multiply that out, 4 times 22 times 343, and then over 21, you can reduce it. So your answer would be 4,312 over 3. The volume of the sphere is approximately, see if I can fit it in here, 4,312 over 3 cubic inches. So now let's look at B. Approximate the volume of the Earth. Use 3.14 for pi. Express your answer in scientific notation, rounding the first factor to the nearest tenth. To find the volume, use the volume formula with the radius equals 6.4 times 10 to the third. So here they're showing you the formula. And so we have 4/3 pi times 6.4 times 10 to the third cubed. So we have 6.4 or 4/3 pi and 6.4 cubed times 10 to the third cubed. 4/3 times 3.14, they wanted us to use that for pi, times 262.144 times 10 to the ninth. Remember, we're raising a power to a power, so we multiply those two exponents. Then when you multiply 4 times 3.14 times 262.144 and divide all that by 3, you get 1,097.5, and it's actually 1,097.50955, but they, again, remember, said round to the nearest tenth, the first factor. So that's going to be times 10 to the ninth. And then because we want it in scientific notation, we have to move this decimal point 1, 2, 3. So we have a number less than or greater than or equal to 1 and less than 10. And because we had to move that over 3 spaces, that was going to be 1.1. This is rounded to the nearest tenth, and this is going to be times 10 to the 12th. So the volume of the Earth is approximately 1.1 times 10 to the 12th cubic kilometers. So let's look at the next question. So after working through numbers 1 and 2, you should be able to do these 2A and B on your own. The only difference here is they're saying you can find the volume of a sphere if you know its diameter. And so because you know that the radius is half of the diameter, here this one, this rubber band ball, it says the diameter is 12, so you know the radius is 6. And so just go ahead and finish that one by filling in the blanks, the correct numbers there, and get your answer here. And again, this one, they're telling you the diameter, not the radius. So if the diameter is 7.4, just divide by 2 and you'll have your answer here. And then you can finish doing the rest of this problem on your own as well. This is the last problem for this lesson, so I'll see you in the next lesson.